My name is Anita Ihuman, and I am a software developer, technical writer, and an open source advocate. And today I'll be speaking on the topic, transitioning from a contributor to a maintainer in open source. During this section, we'll be looking at how you can choose the right community when contributing to open source, how you can understand the community you find yourself in, the difference between a contributor and a maintainer, taking small steps towards your contributions, and finally stepping into the role of a maintainer. As a beginner or as someone who just started a journey into open source ecosystem, you might be asking yourself questions like, is it possible? Because it feels like it's unachievable, but I would like to tell you today that it's actually very possible. There are people who have done it, there are people who are doing it, and there are people who are currently excelling at it. And I'm telling you, it's very, very possible. And when starting your journey in open source, the first thing you should consider is the right community, because when you find yourself in the right community, you'll be able to exercise all your full potentials when contributing, and you'll be dedicated to that particular community. But the right thing is always finding the right community, or the biggest task is always finding the right community rather. And you might be asking, how do I even come across the right community, or how do I find myself in the right community? There are different criteria which you can use to identify the right community to contribute in, but it all depends on what you are looking out for in the community. Yeah? You can find the right community based on your area of specialization. Let's say you're a developer, you look for a community that is centered around developing projects only, or just mostly on the development side. Or if you're a designer, you look for a community that cares a lot about design. There are communities like open source design and lots of them like that. Or if you're into technical writing, then you look for a community that cares a lot about documentation and technical writing and focus your energy on it. And also, you should also look for a community that aligns with your interests. So it depends on what you're looking for in an open source community. Always look for one that aligns with your interests and what you're looking at for in the community. And then the next thing is find a community that supports your personal growth. There are so many open source communities, but not so many actually are community centered, because a lot of them are, most communities focus more on the project side rather than the community side. So you should always look for a community that supports the community growth as well, not just project-centered communities. And while you're doing this, by the time you identify with the right community and you feel comfortable enough, the next thing to do is to understand your community, yeah? Because now you're in the right community, or you feel like you're in the right community, the next step to do is to make a research upon that particular community. Go out there, find resources, read about that community, study about it in such a way that if someone approaches you and asks you questions regards that community, you'll be bold or confident enough to tell them all that is going on in that community. In fact, you'll be able to pitch that community to them. Yeah, so research on that particular community, identify with the projects that are ongoing in that particular community. You can do this by looking through their repository overview, checking the projects that are ongoing there, or just go through their GitHub pages and check the ongoing projects. And then the next thing to do is to find areas that you can volunteer in, because in open source, there are always projects out there to volunteer. There are always projects that are looking for more contributors. Yeah, so just look for any area within the community that you've identified yourself with to make your contributions. And another thing to do is to find your niche in that particular community. So depending on what your skill set or your specialty is, there must be something about you that you know you're very good at, that if you put or you contribute to this particular community, it's going to impact not only to yourself, but also to the members of that community. So just find that area within that community. It could be documentation, it could be project-based, it could be designing, it could be relational activities, maybe just helping people in the community as well. All of that is a way of contributing. So just find your niche within that community and begin your journey. And by the time you've understood the community and then you're beginning to settle in, you have to look out for, you have to understand the difference between the contributor and the maintainer. Because everyone, the truth is the contributor and the maintainer are both contributors to open source, but then they both carry out different tasks and activities. And the contributor, what differentiates the contributor from a maintainer is the contributor like every other person, submit a pull request, because for you to be able to contribute to that project, you might have either submitted an issue, created an issue, or submitted a pull request, or done anything of such. And you'll be able to review other people's pull requests. If you see a pull request on GitHub that you feel that needs to be improved on, or you think you have a thought that you can help that person through, you can drop your thoughts on that particular pull request. And that's how you review a pull request. You can participate in project meetups, attend their meetings on a regular basis, try to make your suggestions whenever you attend the meetings, and then you identify and create new issues. So you can actually go out and look for new issues in that particular community and then create it and get started with that. So what differentiates a normal contributor now from a maintainer is the roles and the responsibilities. Now, the maintainer, on the other hand, has been in the community for a long time and understands a particular niche or a particular area of that particular community. It could be project-based, it could be design-based, but then he focuses on that particular area alone. The maintainer has been active on a particular project for a minimum duration of time, and it depends on how long the community sets its metrics. Maintainers can be set within 3 months, some within 6 months, but it all depends on the community's metrics. The maintainer has contributed to a substantial number of non-trivial issues and high quality patches. So instead of just fixing maybe one line of code or a typo or just a word error, a maintainer goes as far as taking further issues, like more complex issues within that particular project, and then handling it. And also, the maintainer has reviewed substantial number of other people's pull requests here, not just once or not just twice in a month, but the maintainer is always there to review pull requests on a daily basis, because it's like the project is all in his hands, yeah? And then the maintainer shows strong will to improve that particular project, because as a maintainer, the project is basically handed over to you. So you have like the full responsibility of saying that the project meets its targets, it grows well enough, and actually attains the heights that it's looking towards. And also the maintainer participates in project design discussions. So now if you see an idea as a maintainer that you feel needs to be improved, you bring it and then you suggest it to the team, pitch it to the team. If they're okay with it, then you look for ways to implement that particular design. So this is what differentiates a contributor from a maintainer. You can see the differences is not much, but then it's all on the gravity or the quality of work that is being done. So now that we know the difference between a community manager, a maintainer, and a contributor, let's take the tiny steps into towards our contributions. And I can go about this. The first thing you should always have in mind is the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So you can become a maintainer by just contributing to one line of code in that particular project and expect to be given the maintainer title the next morning. It doesn't work like that. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort and dedication. So you have to start with the very tiny steps, which are first, making your first pull request, of course. Look for the very friendly issues in that particular project. Start with the very basic issues. This is what I always tell everybody. Start with the very basic issues, because you'll be able to like adapt with the situations over time, but then the little issues are what will help you over time. And then improve the documentation. You can improve documentation by, if you're not familiar with it, read through the documentation well enough, and then find if there are flaws that exist within that particular documentation, pick them out and create issues about that particular flaw and look for ways to improve them. And then volunteer for community tasks. Always be there to volunteer to help in the very tiniest ways that you can. It could be just organizing the meetups, whichever one it is. Just try to help in the best ways that you can. And also attend meetings in that particular community. Because attending meetings is not only going to like make you familiarize with the project, but also it's going to help you as a member of the community familiarize with other members in that particular community, and also to collaborate with them. So that's a very, very important part when like taking your steps towards contributing to open source. And the consistency is always the key for everything you're looking out for. Be consistent. Once you take through these tiny steps and you're already like moving on a scale, just keep it on that particular momentum. Just keep on creating pull requests, helping in the best way that I can, attending meetings frequently. This is not only going to like get your hands stronger on that particular project, it's also going to make people in the community or on that particular project to know you or recognize your efforts towards your contributions. Yeah. So they'll see that, okay, this person is dedicated enough towards this project. We've been seeing him here for some time. We've been seeing him here for a month. This is a nice one. We can gift him this particular thing, or we can recognize him by giving him this title. Or yeah, so consistency is always the key. Now let's step into the role of a maintainer. And the first thing you should know is, in order to take up any leadership roles, you have to prove or show the potentials of the leader. And the potentials of the leader could be anything, but then being able to handle the responsibilities of that particular role you're looking out for is what will determine that you have the potentials to actually take on that role. And we can do that in the open source by first suggesting new features. So we've been fixing issues that other persons have created. And I think by the time you get familiar with the project, you'll be confident enough to create new issues and suggest those features. Yeah. So just suggest new features during meetings or during meetups, bring them up to the your teammates, and tell them that you think this is going to be a nice implementation if it's put in this project. And if it is agreed upon, then go on and create issues on that particular feature that you just brought up and suggested. Create issues towards it and then delegate the tasks. Another key thing that a leader always possesses is the ability to delegate. So be able to delegate tasks amongst other members of the community, not only yourself. You don't have to do the work all by yourself, because the idea of open source is to collaborate and bring people together. Yeah, so you can't be the only one handling that particular task. Even if you're looking out to be, or you're aiming to be a maintainer, you have to be able to delegate the tasks amongst other people. So mentor new contributors as well. Help other persons that are coming into the community to familiarize with that particular project. Help them in the best ways that you can. It could be on one-on-one calls, teaching them on how to get started with the project. Of course, you've gone through that phase, so you'll be familiar, you'll be experienced in the process, with the process enough to actually put someone through. So just put them through, teach them how to create their first pull request. If they're having difficulties setting up the project on their end, you can also help them with that. That's also a good way to get started. And then review pull requests. Now this is like a very, very complex one, or this is like the height of it, because while you're reviewing the pull requests, if there's any error that goes wrong, of course you can revert the changes, but then imagine where the line of code that you just merged had a very big issue and it actually affects the entire project. It could be just a small drift, but then that small drift actually matters. So you should always be very careful whenever you're like reviewing these pull requests, because you have the ability to merge them, and that is a very, very big task as a maintainer. So these are all the steps you actually need whenever if you're looking out to like put more effort towards becoming a maintainer in open source. The rest of it is just consistency. Once you put all of this together, be consistent and keep pushing towards it. It could be a duration of 3 months, it could be a duration of 6 months, it could be a duration of 1 year, but then it all depends on how consistent you are and the metrics that the community has set together for in order to like raise somebody's position in that particular community. So just keep on at it. Follow up with the everything we just discussed right now. And before you know it, you'll be out here posting your reviews just like this person's. And you see that it's actually very possible. Within a space of 1 year, this person here was able to become a maintainer in 2 projects. In one community, but then 2 projects, which is awesome, because sometimes you feel like it's not achievable or it's not feasible. But when you see the reviews, I feel when you see the reviews, you actually realize that it's very possible and it's achievable. So I hope all that I've said and discussed within this section has will be of good use to you and help you in the best ways that you can. And also practicing this will also help you in your steps to becoming a maintainer or a contributor or a community manager, whichever one you're looking out for. But just try and be more active and consistent with the steps we just discussed during this section. Thank you so much for your time. We can connect on social media or on GitHub. You can link up with me on Twitter, on GitHub, or on LinkedIn, whichever one. Just drop a message if you want to like talk better. I'll definitely be available to answer you. Thank you for your time. And if there are any questions right now, I'm open to take them.